Greetings, everyone. I am Tim Keys, and I wanted to come on here and talk about the situation with Reason and Landr joining together. And basically, for those who don't know at this point, Landr has acquired Reason Studios, and now they will be merging together as one company with, I imagine, Landr ultimately steering the ship of the Reason product. I kind of go over some of the details listed in this article from Reason Studios, and then I'll give my hot take. So here they're saying, hey, they're teaming up. They're going to redefine the future of music creation. They give some background information about their DAW. For those of us, we love the Reason Rack, the Reason workflow, and they want to continue to make tools to inspire that particular style of music creation. They're saying, for right now, rest assured there will be no immediate changes to customer accounts, licenses, pricing, or support. So this is good news in terms of for right now. They're not going to do any changes immediately. I'm curious as to how long they will keep this part up, if they will maintain this, because again, they're saying there's no immediate changes. How long they will maintain that stance, it is yet to be seen. I'll circle back to that. They say the goal is they want to integrate Landr's ecosystem of plugins and samples and their intelligent mastering and distribution. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Landr, Landr started out basically, or they got popular because they were a company that allowed you to get a fairly decent mastering of your song if you sent the song out to them. You paid whatever the fee is, and then you went from there. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they eventually added a collection of samples that you could use, and they were actual samples from, artists and musicians. Bob James, if I'm not mistaken, was one of those artists. You could use those in your music fairly easily without the hassle. Like if you use those samples in your music, as long as you had the paperwork that they supplied you with, the clearance process was easy. So that became a very good deal. I do know that they also acquired a few years back. They acquired, I think it was Orb Composer. So that line of plugins, Orb Composer, Orb Melody, it was quite a few of them actually. That I think it used to be, if I'm not mistaken, the company was Hexachords. Pardon me if I got the name wrong. Let me type this in real quick and we can take a quick reference just to make sure I'm not losing. Orb Producer and Orb Composer. Hexachords. And so Orb Composer was one deal, and then Orb Producer, if I'm not mistaken, Orb Producer Suite, that was the one that is now acquired by Landr. I had Orb Producer Suite before they got bought out. I thought it was a very good deal to use, and at the time I was impressed by the product and thought it was useful because it kind of eliminated the need to buying what do they call those things? Those MIDI chord packs. So while everybody was pushing MIDI chord packs and things of that nature and talking about how great they were, you had these tools that you could just generate your own MIDI if you needed to. There are quite a few other products like that, but I went with the Orb Composer or Producer at the time just because I thought it was a good deal. The reviews in terms of support since they've been acquired by Landr have, in fact, been mixed reviews. I've not tried to, upgrade any of my stuff with them. I probably should. Go find that information and then say, hey, I purchased this product, and get situated and see what they'll do and reach out to them in that regard. I just haven't done so. I haven't had the time. That being said, here's what they're saying for the Reason users. They want to create more ways for people to access the Reason Rack for non-Reason DAW users. They kind of started this a while back when they did, Europa. If you remember, like when Reason 10 came out, that was kind of a big deal for the product. It made some noise, especially with Europa and Grain. Like those two instruments in particular were kind of a big deal for Reason at the time because like Reason finally had a in-house stock wavetable synthesizer that quite frankly was really good. No, Gemini, I don't need you. Was really good. And then they also had a very powerful granular synthesizer with Grain, a lot of features in that rack unit, things that you can do to create new sounds, modify samples, change tones, create new tones, etc., in a multitude of different ways. And I can remember at the turn of the year, early 2018, if I'm not mistaken, they put out a VST version of Europa, and it was really good. And they should have kept going and releasing some of those other products as VSTs, in my opinion. But they kind of stopped doing that and instead went on the direction of doing their whole product as a VST when they came out with version 11, and hence they stopped doing the what was it the rewire. So they had no longer, you they no longer supported rewire and implemented its usage as a version 11. Instead, they went the route of doing VSTs, and that was a mixed bag. Some people loved it, some people hated it. So now they're going to try to create different ways of accessing the rack for non-Reason users or non-DAW users. That'll be interesting to see how they go about doing that. Integration between Landr and Reason products. Again, will they implement and allow people who have purchased Reason and, who have the subscription to say like, all right, you can now get these integrated into Reason? I kind of think that would be a nice idea. Knowing the history of like Reason's implementation of players and those MIDI tools that you can purchase and use to get different ideas going in a variety of different ways, I think if they implemented something like having producer being native to the Reason rack, that could be helpful. Increased levels of customer support would be good. I think, I won't go, I'll leave that be. You can read that part for yourself. I think the thing with Reason that I'm kind of curious about long term, in my opinion, this is just me, is that Reason, historically speaking, as good of a DAW as it is, and it's a very good DAW in my opinion, there's a lot of things you can do with it. I don't think the the rack workflow is hard. Quite frankly, in my opinion, it's very simple. I got Reason open up right now. It looks overwhelming at first because everything is set up to simulate like an actual rack-based studio, and if you had hardware equipment with knobs and whatnot. But you can also, hit the button and go to your sequencer. You can go pick an instrument, pick whatever you want. And I'm going to wait on this to load up because I got too many things going at once. Give it some time to think. And I'm not pausing this because I'm doing this on the fly. Hopefully, it'll come out of, the slowness state. But the point is, you can do all of those things. And this is not a good sell for Reason, by the way. It's like, uh-oh, it's being stuck. There it is. And so now you have your instrument in, you can record and put something to track. You can add a track. Like the process of making music once you get started is fairly straightforward. You can go into the racks if you want to by hitting, certain buttons. And now you got this simulated rack layout of an FM synth. I'm using Algorithm, which is not a stock instrument. It's an expansion or an extension, rack extension that you would have to purchase or you would access by having the subscription. But you would go in and you could go and make any of your changes to your sound that way, or you can click the presets. It's fairly straightforward. The difference is if you wanted to get creative, you hit the tab button, you can go in the back of it. And depending on the device that you had, you can execute some very interesting modulation capabilities. But outside of that, it's pretty straightforward and it's very fun to use initially. The caveat with Reason as a long term Reason user, for me in particular, it's not so much that it's a hard DAW or it lacks any features per se at this point. The problem is, in my opinion, with Reason, they have not done a good job with listening to their customers long term. Reason has historically kind of like did the thing that they wanted to do, which is great, but they have always done it kind of like at the expense of listening to their customers. So a lot of folks have been wanting VST support for years, and for years initially they were like, we're not doing it. It wasn't until they had got acquired by another company that they went on ahead and finally implemented the VST support, kind of because they had to. I think in particular for Reason Studios, I think I could be wrong, but that 2014 2015 time frame was kind of rough. Like that period for Reason, going from Reason 7 pardon me, to Reason 8 and Reason 9 it was kind of rough, because I can remember when Reason 8 came out and there was all of this anticipation about it, and then when it finally dropped, it was like nothing but a face up lift on the screen. They changed a couple of effects plugins, but that's because the initial plugins that they had with Line 6, that relationship was expired. So they partnered with another company, I think that was Softtube, and together they made the amps that you have in the effects unit now. If I go here, you can see them. Scroll down, and yep, Softtube amp and Softtube bass amp. Really nice, by the way, but for its time, like going from version 7 to version 8 and at charging people, $200, a couple dollars for the upgrade, and this is what you're getting: some bass amps and a pushback screen. That upset a lot of people. And so with all of the things that you could do in Reason at the time, a lot of people jumped ship, went to different DAWs. FL Studio was kind of like picking up steam, not only in the EDM space, but also picking up steam in the urban music space, especially with all the features that they were having and lifetime free updates, which again, not every DAW does, and I don't think every DAW needs to do lifetime free updates. But I think, like, if you're going to charge people, like Ableton charges people, sheesh, 200 plus for, an upgrade unless you catch it on sale. But at the time, especially back in the mid 2010s and latter end of 2010s, they kind of made sure their users had like features and things in their DAW that would be appreciative. Reason has kind of seemed to struggle with that. Now the big issue with some folks is like stem separation and stem splitting and things of that nature, and how to implement these AI features. FL Studio seems to be ahead of the curve in that department, as they do have stem splitting. They've had that for quite a while. They've got some generative tools. Logic, same thing. They've got some mastering tools now built in, as well as like AI mastering tools, if I'm not mistaken. They also have the stem splitting. Logic is a great DAW, by the way, and it's cheaper price point, $200. Ableton finally got the stem splitting, and they have just a plethora of different features. They also have now included like more stock instruments in the standard version of their product, which makes it more appealing to a broader audience. And so, yeah, like Reason is a great product, but Reason has always had a mixed bag when it comes to, the upgrade and listening to their customers. So now that they've combined with this new company, it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they get down. And hopefully, I'm optimistic, but I'm also prepared. Hopefully, things won't be too bad. Like, for example, Native Instruments and Isotope, they merged. I think it was another company, Plug-in Alliance. They merged together somewhere between 2022, and they seem to be doing fine. FL Studios Image Line and UVI have also merged together back in 2022, and they seem to be doing fine. And so I think a lot of things will depend on just how they roll this thing out. But for right now, this is the situation as is. I hope Reason continues to do well. I hope Landr doesn't drop the ball. I hope there's these parties can listen to one another and they're able to move this product forward in a way that's useful for long-term users and for new people, younger artists and producers who want to jump in and get into music creation. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I am Tim Keys, and I am signing off.